What if the purest royal blood was the deadliest poison of all? Imagine living your entire life, your body, your mind, your very fate trapped inside a prison built long before you were even born. Because for centuries, the world's most powerful families were obsessed, almost possessed by one chilling idea, keeping their royal bloodline pure at any cost. They traded genetic secrets for political power, spun twisted family trees that looped back on themselves and gave birth to shocking truths history was never meant to reveal. And behind the glittering crowns and majestic palaces lurked hidden truths darker than any fairy tale stories of shattered minds, broken bodies, and unstoppable family curses. This is dark history, at its most haunting a saga of royal scandals, untold genetic secrets, and the insane facts hidden in dusty archives and forgotten tombs. From queens who married their own brothers, to mothers whose children were born twisted and frail, to dynasties that collapsed under the weight of their own blood. These are the unbelievable stories they never taught you in school. Today we're diving into the top 10 most inbred women in history, peeling back centuries of secrecy and revealing how the relentless pursuit of power and purity turned powerful women into living tragedies. And trust me, by the time we reach number 1, you'll be questioning everything you thought you knew about royal blood family secrets and the hidden cost of power. Because here's the shocking truth. The royal obsession with pure bloodlines didn't just destroy dynasties, it left behind scars written in DNA. Scars that still echo in the veins of people alive today. This isn't just dusty old history. This is a dark secret that could be closer to your own family tree than you'd ever imagine. So buckle up, because what you're about to hear might just change how you see powerful women, royal families, and the twisted price of keeping blood pure forever. How much royal blood is too much? Before it turns into poison Spain, learn that answer the hard way. In 1830, a baby girl was born into royal luxury, Isabella II. Her father wanted a son so desperately that when Isabella arrived, he convinced himself all was well. But the royal cradle hid a dangerous truth. Isabella wasn't just a princess. She was the child of an uncle marrying his niece. Her family tree wasn't a tree at all. It was a twisted loop, a royal secret woven tight for centuries. At just 16, Isabella was forced into marriage with her double second cousin. It sounded like politics. In reality, it was genetic Russian roulette. She gave birth 11 times, but heartbreak ruled her palace. Only 5 children survived infancy. And the scandal didn't stop there. Whispers swirled that not a single one of those surviving children belonged to her husband. A royal marriage built on bloodlines, crumbling under secrets and silent betrayals. In the end, Isabella lost her throne not to war, but to the silent curse running through her own veins. Because sometimes royal blood becomes a cage instead of a crown. And if you think Isabella's story was tragic, wait until you hear about a woman born into an empire so obsessed with keeping blood pure, she became the ultimate pawn in a game between emperors and conquerors. How tangled can a royal bloodline become before it strangles its own future? For Louise of Austria, the answer was written in her veins from birth. She arrived in the world carrying the crushing weight of one of Europe's most twisted royal lineages. Her parents weren't just cousins, they were double first cousins. They shared both sets of grandparents, transforming their family tree into a perfect genetic circle. Imagine having only 4 unique great-grandparents instead of 8. That's not just rare. That's a genetic secret, so extreme scientists today only see it in isolated villages cut off from the world. In the glittering courts of the Habsburgs, such unions weren't accidents. They were strategy. Cousin married cousin to keep crowns, secure territories united, and royal blood pure. But the price was always lurking in the shadows. In Louise's family, tragedy struck again and again. Of 12 children, only 7 survived to adulthood, a silent toll taken by centuries of repeated genes. At just 18, Louise was married off to a man who'd once been her family's bitter enemy, Napoleon Bonaparte. A marriage designed to forge peace, and to produce a male heir. For her, it meant the weight of an empire pressing down on her young shoulders, all while her own bloodline carried secrets that no throne could protect her from. And if Marie-Louise's life sounds suffocating, the next woman's story plunges us even deeper into the dark corners of royal scandals, because it proves that the nightmare of inbreeding isn't some ancient relic. It's still echoing in the hidden corners of our modern world. What if I told you that the horrors of royal inbreeding didn't end in dusty castles, but are still alive, breathing, and suffering in our world today? Lorraine Whitaker's story rips away the illusion that inbreeding belongs only to ancient crowns and velvet thrones. Born in a small American town, Lorraine became part of a name whispered in documentaries and news specials across the world, the Whitaker family. They are a living case study in what happens when generations of isolation and intermarriage spiral out of control. While kings and queens once married cousins for power in Lorraine's world, the reasons were far simpler and far more tragic: poverty, seclusion, and a community cut off from the outside. Lorraine stands out as one of the most inbred individuals documented in modern times, but perhaps the most haunting truth is that she's also the mother of Timmy Whitaker, a man some scientists consider possibly the most genetically affected person alive today. His physical and mental challenges serve as a stark modern monument to the genetic consequences we usually read about only in history books. Lorraine's story isn't just dark history, it's a brutal reminder that genetic tragedy can unfold anywhere, even behind the closed doors of ordinary homes. This isn't royal scandal. This is raw human suffering that's still happening, hidden in the forgotten corners of the modern world. And if you think the Whitakers' story is the peak of heartbreak, wait until you hear about a royal woman born into a palace of gold, who slowly lost her crown and her mind to the invisible curse flowing through her veins. What happens when the blood that's supposed to keep a dynasty pure becomes the very poison that destroys it? For Maria, the Pious of Portugal, or as some whispered, Maria the Troubled, that question was her entire life. Born in 1734 into the splendor of Portugal's royal court, Maria's fate was sealed before she ever drew her first breath. Her parents, King Joseph of Portugal and Maria Anna of Spain, weren't strangers brought together by politics. They were the 16th Iberian royal couple, joined by close intermarriage, each generation tying the family knots tighter until those knots became chains. The pressure to protect the royal bloodline never let Maria breathe freely. In a choice both political and painfully personal, she married her own uncle, and the consequences were exactly what dark history had warned for centuries. Half her children never survived beyond infancy, their tiny bodies fragile from the unseen curse lurking in repeated genes. As years passed, Maria's mind began to fracture. Once hailed as pious and devoted, she descended into mental torment so severe that royal advisors declared her unfit to rule. Her throne remained, but the woman who once wore the crown was lost behind haunted eyes. In the end, Maria wasn't defeated by war or rebellion or foreign invaders. She was undone by the invisible genetic curse woven into her family's twisted royal bloodline. And if Maria's tragic spiral into madness seems like the ultimate price of royal inbreeding, just wait. Because the next woman's story plunges us into an even darker labyrinth, one where marriage, politics, and blood twisted into a destiny soaked in sorrow and shadow. What if I told you that even in the modern world, under television cameras and flashing paparazzi, royal bloodlines were still tying themselves into the same dangerous knots as centuries before? Enter Princess Alexia of Greece, born in 1965. Her story might seem like a fairy tale written for glossy magazines, a princess with royal parents growing up amidst palaces and titles. But beneath the surface lay secrets woven into her DNA. Because Alexia wasn't just born into royalty, she was born into a family where bloodlines overlapped in ways few dared whisper aloud. Her parents, Queen Anne-Marie of Denmark and King Constantine II of Greece, weren't simply two royals from distant thrones. They were related not once but twice over, second cousins and third cousins. Their marriage was as much political strategy as it was romantic headline, ensuring that the royal houses of Europe remained tightly bound. And the deeper you look into Alexia's family tree, the more tangled it becomes. Constantine's great-grandparents were siblings. One of his grandmothers was also the sister of his great-grandfather. Anne-Marie's lineage carried its own shadows. Even though their marriage appeared loving and modern, the genetic reality was undeniable. Alexia and her siblings were part of a legacy of twisted royal bloodlines, much like the famously intertwined British royals Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Philip. Alexia's story proves that even the bright lights of the 20th century couldn't erase the shadows of old dynastic traditions. And if you think modern royals held dark secrets, just wait until we travel back to a dynasty whose family tree didn't just tangle. It looped around itself so tightly that the line between family and self almost vanished. How far can royal duty push a woman before her spirit finally breaks? Marie-Louise Elizabeth d'Orléans never really had a choice. Born into a royal web so tangled it might as well have been a cage, she arrived in a world where marriages were rarely about love and always about blood. Her father was forced to marry his own cousin, the illegitimate daughter of King Louis XIV, a match arranged not for passion, but to keep royal bloodlines tightly interwoven. As the eldest surviving child of that union, Marie-Louise's destiny was sealed. She was married off to yet another cousin, Prince Charles of Berry. Their union produced 3 children. Not one survived childhood. Whether their deaths were caused by the relentless weight of inbreeding or the cruel hand of fate, history leaves us only silence. But the records tell us something darker. By age 14, Marie-Louise was drinking heavily, perhaps seeking oblivion or simply trying to numb a life written for her by others. Her tale became one of shattered dreams, lost heirs, and a princess drowning under the impossible burden of twisted dynastic duty. Yet, as tragic as Marie-Louise's story is, the next woman's life reminds us that even the brightest royal courts can hide shadows so dense. They turn bloodlines into living curses. What happens when devotion turns into darkness? And royal bloodline becomes a ticking time bomb. Maria the Pious of Portugal, some called her devout, others whispered she was simply Maria the Troubled. Born in 1734, Maria entered a world draped in velvet and gold, but bound tight by invisible chains. Her parents, King Joseph III of Portugal and Maria Anna of Spain, were not simply royal allies. They were the 16th Iberian royal couple joined by close intermarriage. Their marriage was yet another link in a long chain where power demanded blood stay pure, no matter the cost. Under crushing pressure to preserve her family's legacy, Maria married her own uncle. It was politics, tradition, and fatalism rolled into one. The consequences were heartbreakingly predictable. Half of Maria's children never survived infancy, victims of genetic threads pulled too tightly over too many generations. But Maria's real tragedy was yet to come. As the years passed, the weight of her lineage seemed to crack her mind. The queen, who once prayed with unwavering devotion, began to slip into shadows of confusion and fear. Eventually, her own advisors declared her unfit to rule. Maria lost not to invaders or traitors, but to the silent genetic curse flowing through her veins. And as Maria's story fades into the echoes of royal palaces, the next woman's life takes us deeper still into a dynasty whose very name has become a symbol of twisted bloodlines, and whose secrets remain some of dark history's most haunting mysteries. How many times can a family circle back on itself? Before the blood becomes a prison, no one can escape. Maria Antonia of Austria might be one of the most tragic footnotes in royal history, a name many have forgotten, even though her genetic legacy is staggering. Born into the mighty Habsburg dynasty, Maria Antonia's family tree wasn't really a tree at all. It was a dense, looping vine so tangled that some historians call it a genetic circle instead of a lineage. While her infamous uncle Charles II of Spain is often cited as the ultimate example of Habsburg inbreeding Maria Antonia's DNA, told an even darker story. The level of inbreeding in her lineage was so extreme that her genetic similarity matched that of a child born to 2 full siblings. Think about that, the same DNA compression you'd find if your parents were brother and sister. It's a shocking truth hidden behind royal titles and glittering crowns. Yet, despite the genetic trap she was born into, history has largely passed Maria Antonia by. Her name rarely makes the pages of dark history overshadowed by more famous royals. But from a genetic standpoint, she stood at the very pinnacle of the Habsburgs' twisted bloodline, a quiet yet unforgettable symbol of how power and purity collided to create human suffering. And if Maria Antonia's forgotten tragedy chills you, just wait. Because the next chapter doesn't come from Europe's gilded palaces, but from the sands of ancient kingdoms where blood ties were not just close. They were divine mandates. How far would a kingdom go to keep power locked in the same royal blood, even if it meant sacrificing the lives yet unborn? In the shadows of Egypt's ancient temples lies a story few ever hear, the silent tragedy of two tiny princesses known only by numbers, mummies 317A and 317B. They never ruled. They never even breathed the desert air for more than a moment. But their existence reveals one of the most chilling truths in dark history. These two infant girls were the daughters, likely stillborn, of Pharaoh Tutankhamun and his queen Ankhesenamun. But here's the detail that makes this story more than just another royal loss. Ankhesenamun wasn't just Tutankhamun's queen. She was also his half-sister. They shared the same father, continuing Egypt's long tradition of divine marriage, where bloodlines were kept painfully close to preserve royal power believed to be handed down from the gods themselves. By the time these daughters were conceived, Egypt's royal blood had been folded back on itself generation after generation. The result, genetic risks that reached a devastating peak. The fragile bodies and deformities found in these mummified remains are haunting reminders that even the mightiest pharaohs could not escape the cold arithmetic of genetic curses. And while the tale of ancient Egypt's doomed princesses feels like the farthest corner of history, our next story drags us abruptly back into the modern world, where hidden family trees and dark secrets still destroy lives in ways that feel all too close. What if the dark secrets of royal bloodlines weren't buried in ancient palaces but alive and festering in our modern world? The story of Kimberly, from a notorious Australian family often shrouded behind a pseudonym, is proof that the horrors of inbreeding didn't vanish with crowns and scepters. They simply went underground. Unlike the princesses and queens we've seen so far, Kimberly wasn't born into palaces or political alliances. She was born into a family so isolated, so hidden, that generations of intermarriage twisted their genetic code into a tragic legacy. The family's secrecy and remoteness created a closed-loop community with virtually no outside genetic input. The result was a lineage marked by severe physical and mental disabilities, a modern reminder that genetic tragedy doesn't care whether you're royal or not. When authorities finally uncovered the truth, the shockwaves were enormous. Police investigations, legal proceedings, and a stunned public confronted the grim reality that inbreeding's dangers are not just dusty tales of kings and queens. Kimberly herself is considered one of the most genetically compromised individuals ever documented, a living embodiment of how hidden bloodlines can devastate entire generations. Yet even Kimberly's modern nightmare pales against the next chapter in our dark journey, a tale of a queen whose very name became synonymous with power, passion, and a royal bloodline so twisted it blurred the line between empire and self. Across centuries, one truth has echoed through royal halls and silent villages alike: when bloodlines twist too tightly, the price is paid in flesh, mind, and legacy. From the towering pyramids of ancient Egypt to glittering palaces of Europe to remote corners of modern towns, these stories prove one chilling fact. The obsession with pure bloodlines has left behind more than golden crowns. It's carved scars deep into human bodies, shattered minds, and erased entire generations. But here's the twist most people miss. These tales aren't just dark history. They're a mirror, a reminder that the choices we make about love, family, and power ripple far beyond ourselves, sometimes into the very DNA of those yet unborn. And maybe that's the lesson hidden beneath these tragic royal secrets, that true legacy isn't written in blood purity, but in compassion, in freedom, and in breaking the chains of the past. We don't have to repeat the mistakes carved into those twisted family trees. So the next time you hear tales of kings, queens, and ancient empires, remember, behind every jeweled crown might lie a secret that's darker than any throne room's shadows. Because sometimes the purest royal blood becomes the deadliest poison of all. If these stories made you see history and humanity in a new light, Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Which royal secret shocked you the most? And if you want to dive deeper into more hidden truths and dark secrets from our past, don't forget to like this video, save it for later, and subscribe to the channel, because history is far more twisted than any fairy tale ever told.